Welcome to This Week in Local, a Locology podcast featuring lively conversations about the local digital ecosystem, hosted by Locology analysts Mike Bolin and Charles Laughlin.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to This Week in Local. I'm Mike Bolin, joined by my co-host Charles Laughlin. So, hey, Charlie, how you doing?
Mike, I'm all right. How are you?
Nice, nice and hot here in California.
Hot
So,
enough here.
what are you working on?
Well, few things, but I did something at the end of last week that was, it's a serious company, but it's kind of a fun idea, and I had a little fun writing about it. It's a company called Ario, and they're a Silicon Valley company, bunch of founders, I think, with backgrounds in cybersecurity and other sort of areas, humorless tech areas like that. And
The
but the
boring stuff.
company, yeah, the company just raised $16 million. I was about to say billion, but I don't think anyone's raised that lately. Um, and what they're trying to build is an AI personal assistant, which I think is a common phrase. I think a lot of people have an idea of what that is, but it really seems to be more in the lane of a true personal assistant, where you have basically someone managing your calendar and this, that, and the other thing. But what's kind of interesting about it is that the company is positioning it as an LLM that trains on your personal data. So it's almost like instead of like a AI robot. Silly idea, but I imagine that's sort of what comes into people's minds when you hear AI personal assistant. It's really more of a personal LLM. That's kind of the idea, where it scoops up, your email and all your. Just think of anything, any stream of data about you, your calendar, etc. I assume social, and it kind of understands, what your schedule is, where you have to be, what you buy regularly, et cetera, and it kind of just manages you that way. And kind of the way it's positioned is, if you hired somebody to do this, it costs you about 100 grand a year. I'm not sure what the price of this thing is actually, but it's a whole lot less than 100 grand a year. And that, and they raised 16 million bucks. I think it's going to take a lot more money to perfect this thing, but we'll see, how much more they have to raise. Um, and it's just kind of interesting that, the idea of a personal LLM trained on your personal data. And it kind of touches on some things we've talked about lately, like Facebook getting slapped down by EU regulators for trying to train Meta AI on everybody's social accounts, at least in Europe. And yeah, so, is this okay to, I assume it is, if you're giving permission for your personal data to train your personal AI assistant. And I'm wondering if this will become a thing. I sort of joked about, yeah, the reference I made. I'm always dating myself with my cultural references, but the reference I made was the movie Swimming with the Sharks. And I said, instead
Kevin
of
Spacey.
having Kevin Spacey throw the incorrectly sweetened coffee at you, you can throw coffee at your AI. I don't think that's how it's going to happen, but I tried to have a little fun with it from that angle. So it's not just for irascible Hollywood execs; it's for everyday people.
Yeah. Well, that movie ended up being pretty prescient in terms of Kevin Spacey sort of abusive tendencies. But
yeah. Just quick note that I forgot where I heard this, and I forgot if I've mentioned this before. God help, I hope I haven't. It was that the two people at the Oscars who the ushers least wanted to deal with were J-Lo and Kevin Spacey. The ushers who have to seat the stars and tell them when they have to get up and go backstage to get ready to present an award, or all that kind of. It's a volunteer job, and apparently some people do it every year, and those are the two they wanted to avoid like the plague.
Huh.
So I'm sure he's nice now.
So yeah, regarding Ario,
Yeah.
So a few things jump out. One is the ongoing question of defensibility, and I guess this question it had to have been answered if their backers. I know one of them was Bain Capital. They put 16 million into this, so that's always a question that VCs ask. But anyway, I'll ask it anyway, because it seems that this doesn't fulfill the sort of requirement that we've talked about a lot lately, including at L24, of AI startups that, in order to be sort of defensible and sustainable, have to have basically sort of the deep tech chops that isn't just a sort of thin layer on top of ChatGPT in order to like
Yeah.
apply it to some specific use case or vertical. And it's like, ChatGPT for, fractional executives.
Hmm.
It seems like that's what it is, but I imagine there's something more to it where they have some degree of differentiation
Well, I don't know
to
if they have
sort of
their
kill
own
the
same. I don't
barriers
know
to
if it's their own
entry.
foundational AI versus just built up. My sense is it's their own foundational.
Yeah. Even if it's
Yeah,
foundational, that's
yeah,
becoming somewhat commoditized, you could
that's fair.
argue,
Yeah,
in terms
yeah.
of, ChatGPT like being bigger and better than everyone, and you can just sort of apply that to what you're doing. Like, so for
Hmm.
example, I guess what I'm getting at is no one's going to do this, so I think they're making it easier, so that's maybe what they're providing,
Hmm.
is the lack of headaches and saving people time. But to be able to take ChatGPT, plug it into my calendar and the other things that are going to train on my schedule, and then have
Hmm.
it be my assistant again. Maybe like the fact that no one's going to actually do that and they've sort of tied it up and put a bow on it is what they're and by
Well,
the way, if your value proposition is saving busy executives time, that's legit in my mind. So maybe that's what it is.
and it's a lot of people's value proposition, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, you raise very
But it
fair points. I
seems
mean,
like a lot of people could cobble this together and DIY it, but maybe
well,
I'm wrong.
what is sort of interesting is kind of how they position this in a bunch of media interviews they did around the raise, and then how they position it in their LinkedIn verbiage and on their website. And they kind of make a big point about how we're early in this journey and this is going to take a long time. And I don't know if that's making excuses for not having something more fully baked or trying to scare off competitors saying we're building something that's going to take years to get right, you know. But I think they're sort of making the point that we're early in the journey. And I'm not sure what that says, other than what I just said. Um, but I think it's an interesting signal that, yeah, there's a lot of these things out there, but what we're doing is unique and it's uniquely difficult, you know, uh,
Hmm.
to sort of have that AI assistant trained on personal data that does the job, sort of seamlessly without, because I think a lot of things that try to save you time cost you time, at least initially. And that initial time cost is such a barrier often. We've talked for years about SMB SaaS, and how it's supposed to be the big time savings for small businesses, but the upfront investment in time has often been a bit, not always a
Yeah, it's a
insurmountable barrier,
barrier.
but often a barrier.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if a lot of AI tools, you know, promise not to be that, but end up being that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, the other thing that jumps out here is that most AI, pre sort of Gen AI and
Yeah.
conversational AI, and the most like the last year and a half of AI excitement and investment, most of the sort of user facing AI has been around personal assistant functions.
Hmm.
However, those
That's kind
personal
of an early
assistant
use case,
functions,
isn't it? Really, I
yeah,
mean,
so
hmm,
Google Assistant, Siri, Alexa,
yeah.
etc. But those assistants have, especially Siri, have been just like famously inept
Not
and
good.
like
Yeah, yeah.
comically dysfunctional.
Like
So I
Frank
think if this
Wally
company,
in Swimming with the Sharks. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So I think if this company were smart in their marketing, they would, have a tagline that was something like, it's like Siri, but it actually works. Um,
Siri, but good. Yeah.
because that's really the promise that's been around for a while,
Yeah.
long predating this company, and maybe that's what got its investors
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah. It's like Alexa, tell me a joke, and it's always the same stupid dad jokes. So
Yeah, yeah.
be good, be better. And I think, I guess I was I was intrigued by how much sort of expectation setting they seem to be doing in their communications. This is going to take a while. Blah blah blah.
They're Oh, I
Yeah.
thought you were going to say they're overpromising. They are
No, they
managing
seem to be
expectations. Huh.
over promising in the long term and sort of tamping down expectations in the short term.
All right, I guess that's
Seems to be
smart.
what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably smart, but I'm wondering if it set off some bells for me, and I wonder if it does for anyone else. But if you look at the investor list, that's always kind of a signal, are smart people taking this seriously? Bain is in, they raised 16 million. I think I said at the end of the post I wrote about this is going to cost a lot more money, I think. And it kind of gets to something I've often said, maybe on this pod once or twice, which is the least interesting thing about a company is the amount of money it has raised. I think I'm not going to be saying that as much anymore, because I think that's becoming one of the more interesting things about a company is the amount of money it can raise. I mean, I wrote something last week, and now the name escapes me, but the company that the guy who left Chat, the guy who tried to kick Sam Altman out of out of OpenAI, left. Go figure, and started a company kind of designed around the notion of safer AI. And again, I should call this up on my screen, but I don't want to fumble around looking for it. But anyway, the guy started this company around kind of a safer AI model. And I think at the end of that post, I said, the amount of money this company raises is going to tell you almost everything about whether it's going to succeed or not. And I think in the AI era, where it's so expensive to build these things, I think it's a better signal than it has ever been of, a company's prospects. I don't know if you agree with that.
Well, I mean, the amount raised when done right should reflect your perceived timeline to revenue, burn rate, all that stuff.
Yeah, fair enough. Maybe that hasn't changed at all, but I kind of feel like in this current environment,
you don't want to take you don't want to take too much, because that means potential down rounds. It means potential equity loss, all that stuff. You don't want to take it not enough, because then you might not make it to your next round or revenue event or your next.
But those are the questions you've always asked, right? And I'm wondering if those questions have changed, or if it's just the scale has gotten bigger. I mean, we talk kind of on both sides of this, because on one side we talk about small early stage startups using AI to avoid raising money, which I think is a thing too. A lot of people talk about that. Sam Altman talks about that. The All-In guys talk about that.
You got to pay for the AI on the other hand, which is expensive, whether it be developer talent or
right. So that's that one thing. But then if you're building a sort of a foundational AI, that's just massively expensive, right?
It's very capital intensive. Absolutely.
Yeah. So if you're being taken seriously as on that specific path of building a foundational AI model of some sort,
you're going to get a big round.
If you're not raising mega bucks, you're probably not a serious player. I guess that's kind of what I was trying to say. Anyway.
Well, also, no smart VC is going to underfund a company, because that's throwing away money.
That's just the worst way to waste money.
Yeah.
Is to undercapitalize a company, because you'll still lose a lot of money, but you'll lose it stupidly.
And then they won't get to their milestones, but you'll still have dumped that money in.
Yeah. Okay, Mike, we can end it there if you like. Why don't you read us out?
Sure. Thanks, everyone, for listening. This has been This Week in Local. Stay tuned every week for more episodes. You can find the show on all major podcast networks and find out more at locology.com. Please subscribe, like, and comment. Your engagement helps others find us. And if you're interested in being a guest or sponsor, you can email us at podcast@locology.com. So I'm Mike Bolin with Charles Laughlin. Our producer is Dara Sweat. So thanks for listening, and see you next time.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of Locology's This Week in Local with Mike Bolin and Charles Laughlin. Be sure to subscribe for more.